Grow your practice, grow your wealth, grow your impact. Find out how to spend less time in the dental chair and more time on the things you love.
Welcome back to the Dental Wealth Podcast. I am excited for this interview we have here. With me in the studio, as always, is the wonderful Eric Morin.
Glad to be here, as always.
And then we have a special guest for you guys. This is someone that we've been in conversations with for, a few months now, I feel like, and he always has a great insight. So I'd like to welcome Gary Bird. He is the CEO of SMC National. So thanks for joining us, Gary.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on. And I had a wonderful time with you guys on my podcast, and I'm excited to be here today.
We got some, Eric and I were discussing, what could we talk about on this? We got so much, I feel like, marketing brain power in this podcast that we could almost write a book from some of these things that we talk about. But before we get into any of that, tell us a little bit about, so the listeners can get an idea of your company. What is SMC National about and how you guys get involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So the name of our company is SMC National. I'm the CEO. I started it about 15 years ago. We didn't start in dental marketing. We started in all other kinds of marketing, and we ended up niching down just to dental for the last many years. We've been only dental, and that's kind of morphed over the years as the groups have started to form. Obviously, a lot of our clients turned into groups and turned into DSOs, and so that's kind of where we're at right now. We are, our company-wise, that we're always growing. So we're really big on company culture. I believe that if we take really good care of our team, we make sure that they're growing, then they in turn make sure that our clients and our clients' team is growing, and that results in our company growing. And we have made the Inc. 5000 fastest growing company list the last 2 years. So something that we're really proud of. That wasn't something that we were setting out to do, but it's a byproduct of putting our team in a winning position, and then them putting our clients in a winning position. A couple other little things about SMC. We are very data driven, not feelings driven. I know most marketing is driven by feelings, right? Do I like the way it looks? Does it make me feel good? We're very driven on data. We have more aggregated dental data for marketing than anybody else in the nation. And that's something that we're really proud of. And it really helps us make decisions at the end of the day and understand what's actually driving results and what's just kind of fluff.
I don't like data at all. Not at all. The entire world's data. And by the way, awesome job on the Inc. 5000. That's awesome. And I saw that. Speaking of marketing, I feel like you own my LinkedIn feed at this point. So whatever you guys are doing, keep doing it, because it literally, I think like every 4 or 5, it feels like I'm like, hey Gary. So it's working because it's top of mind, and you guys are staying top of mind, and I promise you that. And congratulations, that's no easy feat. So a big kudos.
Thanks. Yeah, it's fun. I'm right now. I'm trying to put out about 8 pieces of content a day. And if you know anything about putting out content, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of energy. Yeah. It's not as easy as people think, right? So people think, I'll just go start posting videos online. Yeah. Actually pre-COVID, I'm not big on social media. Like personally, Gary Bird, the person outside of business, I don't like social media. I don't use it personally. And so pre-COVID, or right when COVID hit, I said, you know what, I have some free time. Things, the market obviously was down, and I decided to jump into social media, and I started on TikTok because there was nobody really on TikTok in the dental world as much. And so I just wanted to just post things and test it. And I was able to grow a following of about 80,000 people over there. And I said, okay, I kind of understand this now. I understand the algorithm. And then now I've started to move into some of the other brands. We have 4 podcasts right now that we're running, and then we repurpose that content.
I saw the repurposing. It was really neat. I got the pleasure of being on your podcast and saw the grabbing certain, chunks of it and utilizing certain parts. I thought that was brilliant. So I was following, by the way. I was watching it. I was like, this is super cool. I called Matthew up. I was like, you got to see what he's done with this. So it's working. It's working. I'm the marketplace telling you it's working.
Yes, yeah. that's the thing that's so hard with branding. So we're a lead generation company. So lead generation, you can measure everything. So we can measure how much it costs to make the phone ring. So we call that cost per opportunity or cost per lead, a real lead. And then we know how much it costs to drive that patient into the door. We know how much it costs what the no-show rate of your marketing is. We know the recare rate of your marketing. We know your same-day treatment ROI on marketing patients, 30 days out, 90 days out. We know a true lifetime rolling lifetime value, which I think we're the only company that actually has that number that I'm aware of. And so we can measure the whole life journey of every single patient and see the ROI on that across the board. And that's what's so cool about lead generation. Now, branding, which is what we're talking about right now that I'm doing, that's tricky because you're measuring eyeballs, and you cannot measure if you see me online and then 4 months later you decide to pick up the phone and call me and say, hey Gary, I'm going to refer you a client, or I got somebody that might want to work with you, that it's really hard to track that. I may not know that LinkedIn was the reason that you did that. It may have been Facebook, it may have been a podcast, or you may have been a referral from someone else. So branding is tricky. There's definitely I like to distinguish the difference between branding and lead generation.
It's funny you use lifetime value of a patient. And I remember I was talking to a group of doctors, and when I started talking about lifetime value, their heads kind of went, what? And so by the way, you just like spoke to everything that I'm like, yes, finally. So I love that. So when somebody's now with this data, so here's, the vast majority of this audience is larger groups, or people moving to DSO, or, most of it are very, very, almost everyone listening is a very successful dentist with a successful practice. And as they move towards that side, what I start thinking about, okay, with all this data, so they get all this data, so who handles that data? Because that's the first question, to scale, they're thinking to scale. So let's just say they've got 7 locations and they're looking to scale, and they've got this data coming in. Who's handling this data? Who's helping them utilize this data to make decisions?
That's a good question. So first, before we even dive into who's handling the data, the one thing I want to talk about is when you're moving from 3 locations or 7 to 10 locations, whatever it may be. And if there's people at 7 listening to this, what they have experienced, every dentist that I've ever talked to goes, hey, I got everything dialed in. I'm at 2 practices. I'm adding a 3rd or the 4th, and you never know when it's going to be. And then all of a sudden, one of them stops getting patients.
Yes.
And they go, it's not working. Whatever we're doing is not working. And they really, at the core, they were never really tracking their marketing. They were just putting money towards things, and it seemed to be working, which is awesome. But if you don't know that it's working, you get stuck in these traps. And even I've seen big organizations. I mean, we work with organizations that have over 100 practices. I've seen people get trapped where they all of a sudden have 10 or 20 practices that literally aren't performing, and then they have another 50 that are. It only takes one bad practice to suck all your profits for 3, 4, 5 practices. So that's the first thing, is that you got to know your numbers. Now, as far as who handles the data, it's really tricky in dental right now. And I actually just had a podcast, and we were talking about this, like, how would if I ran a DSO, what would I track and how would I track it? And one of the things that's tricky is that you have all this data, you have all these dashboards. So there's Jarvis, there's Dental Intel, there's several others out there. Some people build their own, some people have spreadsheets, whatever it may be. You have to realize that you're only measuring numbers inside the practice. And now that helps you on converting inside the practice, but almost nobody's measuring top of funnel. Or if they are measuring top of funnel, they're measuring way too high on top of funnel. Let me give you an example. If you're just measuring what your SERP rate is, or your SERP score, and you're measuring your click-through rate on your ads, that doesn't actually tell you anything about how many patients you're driving. So for any business, it doesn't matter if it's dental or any other industry, you need to know how. You guys watch Shark Tank, right? I'm sure you guys do. You guys are entrepreneurs.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So what's the number one question they always ask everybody? Hey, how much does it cost for you to acquire a customer?
How many times have I said that, Matthew? How many times have I said that? By the way, Gary, I just have to tell you, on stage, I have probably said that comment no less than 200, maybe 300 times. That's absolutely, because I go there every single time. So it's funny you said that.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And I would say 9 out of 10 people that I've had conversations with don't know the answer to that question.
Well, here's what everybody does. I was just on a marketing call with a DSO that had about 500-600 locations. And they said, hey, Gary, we got about 10% of our practices aren't performing. They have an internal marketing team. So can you help us with that? Can you take these on? They're not doing what we want them to do. And I said, okay, what's your cost per acquisition globally? And they said, oh, it's between this and this. And it was about $250. And I said, okay, how'd you get that number? And this is how everybody does it. Even the big dogs do it this way. And it's wrong. It's 1,000% wrong. They said, oh, I took my marketing budget divided by total new patients. Well, here's the problem. Not all of those came from marketing. 50% of new patients, roughly, give or take 10%, are coming from patient referrals or doctor referrals. So that means they're not being generated by you putting money into your marketing. So you're getting an altered reality of, oh, my cost per acquisition, it's $200. No, it's if you are doing it the way I just told you, it's probably closer to $400 or $500.
Yep.
So then you open up a de novo. So you say, now we can open up a de novo. We can open up a practice right now and get 100 patients in month one. You end up having to spend 2-3 times what you thought, and you still don't get the patients in because you actually don't have a system that's capturing and showing you where the data is being broken down. So first I had to define that, but your question was who actually manages the data. So what we have done, the reason that we built this is very, very simple. I realized very quickly that I can't succeed as a marketing company if I don't have these numbers, just plain and simple. So I didn't want to lose. I didn't want to lose clients. I didn't want to disappoint people. So I said, I'm going to set out to build this. Now, it took us 6 years to build this because it's so convoluted in dental because the numbers are all over the place. A lot of the data going in is incorrect. So then you have to sort through all of that. And so we said, okay, we're the top of funnel, so we have to lead the way. We just had to take responsibility. So in top of funnel, if you don't know what that means, top of funnel data is like how much it is to generate a phone call. And then bottom of funnel is like how much treatment did the patient buy?
Yep.
Or did the patient come back to their next appointment? That's kind of bottom of funnel. So that's kind of the way to think about it in dental. So what we do is we come in and we say, okay, let's track these top of funnel metrics. Let's see how the handoff is going from marketing to operations, even though that's not our responsibility. It's operations responsibility, but there's massive holes. So I call this the black hole of dentistry. And I'm just going to use industry averages, and this is going to blow your mind. So let's say you spend $10,000 on marketing. The average unanswered call rate in dentistry right now, do you guys know this number off the top of your head? I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I just usually, it blows people's minds how.
I imagine it's high.
It's very high. It's ridiculously high. It's 35%. So I want you to go, now here's what dentists do. They go, oh, no, we answer 99% of our calls. And then I go, oh, like what percentage though? Do you know the percentage? And they go, I'm sure it's almost like 100%. And I go, no. What is the actual percentage? And they go, well, we don't track it like that. I go, you're losing about 30 to 35% of your opportunities right on the phone. And that's wild. Like to me, that's crazy. So now you're at $7,000. Okay.
Yeah.
Then the average marketing conversion on the phone is 50%. But then the office says, no, Susan's really good. She converts. I hear her converting all of her patients. And I go, okay, but patient referrals are easy to convert. I mean, I'm sure she's converting all the patients from other referrals, right? From the doctor referral, from the patient referral. I could do that cold turkey right now. I could put my 16-year-old son on the phone right now, and he would convert the patient referrals. But marketing patients aren't that way. And so now you just lost half of your patients right there if you don't know that number. So now what are we at? We're at $3,500 of 10,000, right? Then from there, most people are punting out their patients 3, 4, 5 weeks sometimes. Well, new patients don't want to wait that long. And so now your no-show rate's going to be around 30%. But you go, no, our no-show rate's only about 10%. That's globally. I'm just talking about marketing. So you end up with we haven't even got to treatment acceptance, recare rate, or any of those other really important metrics. I'm just talking about what actually made it into your office is about $2,000. Then everybody says, the marketing didn't work. We didn't get anything. I've been spending $5,000 or $10,000 a month for the last 20 years, and I have a 90% recare rate, but our office hasn't grown. That's why you have a glass ceiling that you can't see. The marketing numbers are invisible to you. You're just wasting your money on marketing. It's bleeding you out. And that's really at the end of the day, that's what we deal with.
I think that was like probably Eric in his happy zone because he loves numbers. Like he's obsessed with them. Like
I'm so happy because it is so interesting how aligned our conversations are. And that's because we live in this world, right? But putting it that way is really helpful for people to hear, because when somebody spends money and they assume, and this is the average assumption, is I drop 10,000, the door should flood in with patients overnight. And you're right. You go back and say, look, what about the phones? Oh, no, we're answering them. All the phones were phenomenal. And then you can just pick up the phone anytime you want to. And it sounds like hell, you know, and they know that too. And then what ends up happening is then all of a sudden, as you said, then we get into case acceptance and all. I mean, it just moves on down. So I love that. So let's isolate. So let's go back to what you were saying earlier. So now all of a sudden we have this, your marketing, we have 4 practices. 3 of them are doing well. 1 is just absolutely dropping the ball, and the profitability is garbage. If it's just not going. By the way, this is very common. I mean, it happens all the time, especially they'll say, well, it goes back to Jim Collins, right? Is a future or past success does not technically predict future success. You can make a mistake, and hubris born of success make mistakes. So then where do you see that lag? All of a sudden now this one practice should be killing it because all the other 3 are. Where does that?
Yeah. So usually there's a couple different things that can happen from. So number one is people forget that they spent 10 years building their first practice, right? Like you got a 10-year runway and now you have this new practice and you're like, well, I already know how to do it. I'm going to give myself a 6-month runway. Now, can you build a practice in 6 months? Yeah. I've seen offices hit over $100,000 in month 1 with a de novo just from dumping in new patients, right? So you can't.
Yeah.
I've done
it. Yeah, exactly. So can you do it? Yeah, absolutely. But it's not going to be just because you opened up the door like you did with the first location. Because that's what a lot of people did 10 years ago was, hey, we opened up our door and then we had 20 new patients and we kind of, did a bunch of work and we got referrals. And then we started doing some marketing and it seemed to work because we grew. But the thing that people don't realize, and you know this, Eric, is like, if you and I started any business, pick any business, throw put all the businesses in the world, throw a dart at it, the chances of us failing is 90%. Except in dental, if we land on dental, then the chances of failing is 10%. Like it's just a huge success rate because the margins are really good on it, right? Like it's just it's insane. It's a
lot of forgiveness.
Yeah, a lot of forgiveness, a lot of wiggle room there. So here's what happens though. Is that if you don't actually know your business and you opened up 2 or 3 practices and they've done really well, and then you open up this other location and it's extremely competitive, maybe you're hitting a different avatar. So I love this one. People go all the time, oh, we're just going to add ortho. Okay, well, I can get you ortho leads, but do you understand that that's a different business model? Like dentistry, people in the medical industry.
Hey, we're going to add sleep dentistry. That's what we we'll just add sleep dentistry.
Or I'm just going to do all on 4s now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, you can't even get people to buy a filling from you.
Yeah.
You're going to now sell a car to people, and they don't realize they're 2 different business models. So you have in GP, you have recurring. Right? You have the recurring model where people are coming back all the time, and all you have to do is get them to come back and you win. And then you have the sales model, which is all the specialty and all those kind of things. And those are 2 different models. Now you can combine them and you can have major growth. I call them super GPs, offices that are doing $500,000-$600,000 a month. Yep. Even the biggest office I've ever worked with is doing $1 million a month with IV sedation and with one office. And so you can do that. But you have to understand what you're going into. And frankly, I just think that a lot of people go into things because their friends told them to, or they heard it from somebody else at a conference one time, and then it slaps them. Now, the good news about failing that way is you have to slow down, step back, and then you have to reevaluate and go back through your business. And so you go marketing, sales or front desk, right? And the treatment coordinating. And then from there, our clinical, and then our hygiene is our recurring model or our retention model. And you just go back through your business and you start cleaning everything up. And then once you figure that out, then scaling becomes so much easier.
Mm-hmm. And I think I've even seen it in the marketplace. I think that's the hardest thing for practices like that to do is go back to the roots of what made them successful in the first place. So whenever a client calls in and they're 2-3 locations and they just bought another location and it's not doing so successful, it's hard to have that conversation and say, I think you're the issue. Like you bought this thinking it was going to be one thing and you tried to run it that way and it wasn't successful. So, I mean, I know you want this grand old strategy on how to do this. Well, we need to go back to square one and go back to the fundamentals of what got you there in the first place. And a lot of times it's hard for them to hear that. They want to hear some crazy cap rate / investments they need to make in order to jump this up.
How can I just roll this up and our EBITDA will double? You know?
And I'm like, we have to go back to the basics. And they're like, well, I need something with more sophistication. No, you need to get back to what made you successful in the first place.
that just, first of all, this conversation, it's almost like, Gary, I've made you a plant. Like everything I've been talking about forever. I'm like, he's just reinforcing all this stuff that I'm like, oh my gosh, my heart's singing right now. I'm like, thank you. I mean,
do you know what it is? This is just normal business stuff that just hasn't got all the way into dental yet.
Yeah,
if you went into any other industry, this would be everywhere.
That's right.
These conversations are extremely. I see people on LinkedIn all the time having these conversations in the marketing world, but not in the dental world.
You know, it's interesting you say that, because that's what I tell people when I'm on stage or other place. I say, I'm a business consultant who happens to be in the dental vertical. I'm not a dental consultant. That's where I specialize at. But because I got pulled into this, I got married into this profession, literally. Yep. And but these are concepts that, outside of the dental world, you're right. These are just concepts that we know and we do, and we utilize them to scale, but they are different. But there is a disadvantage depending on where you are and if you're still in a clinical position, because how much time are you actually dedicating to the growth of the business? And if you are handing it off, who are you handing it off to? And do they have the ability to then help you get there? Because that's the pivot point, right? Because if they're still seeing patients 3 or 4 days a week, which we try to get them out of the chair, but if they're still doing that and they're allocating 5 hours a week to then address this, $3 million new investment they just made, and then they haven't scaled up the team in operations to get there, as you said, the operations aren't ready yet, then it's like, what happened? Well, what happened was you prematurely scaled and you weren't ready for it yet because you hadn't built the team, the systems, the operations to actually handle the scale. And that's one of the reasons I went numbers, because I said, I see that when there's a level where people, it's like, if we went through as like, first of all, people are scared, don't do marketing. Then you have like a level that does marketing, understands what the idea, or understands, I'm going to put 8%, I'm going to put 6%, whatever that is. And then we move up into being able to actually handle data, and we can keep moving up the scale. Right. And so there's different levels of being able to handle it. When years ago, I remember, and it wasn't but 5 years ago, when you said 3% marketing, people would still flip out, and the accountants were telling people not to, right? Yeah. And now finally people understand 6%, 7%, 8%, they can get on board with it. But I think that it's not just getting on board, it's now, what do you do with all this information? How do you implement, so that when that conversation happens, like you just said, which I think is profound, hey, look, and here's how we can break this apart. And what I see is, when you say that conversation, they'll turn it around and go, well, it's just, I need something that just does it all for me. And it's like, well, you have to build the operation that actually does it. An outside marketing firm can't do it all for you. They can bring in the patients, they can get the phone ringing, they can do all these things, but you have to also build out the infrastructure inside the business to handle it.
Well, first you have to get the data to build the infrastructure, right? Yeah. Imagine trying to build a skyscraper, and I'm like, I don't tell you where the land is. And I don't tell you what materials you have, and it's build the skyscraper. It's impossible. So you have a lot of people who are trying to build the infrastructure without actually knowing what the numbers are. And there's a couple of different frameworks that I use for this. Number one, what you described for the dentist who is a full-time dentist and trying to run this big 7-practice, 10-practice organization, I call it fractional CEO, which is no such thing, right? You hear fractional marketing, you hear fractional COO, you never hear of a fractional CEO. And it's very
trademarked
stressful.
By Gary Bird.
It's so stressful. A CEO has so many hats that they're wearing, and they're responsible for the culture. They're responsible for if you don't have a chief dental officer, then you're responsible for all the compliance and make sure everybody's doing the clinical side right, the culture side right, all the managers usually. And if you don't have a CFO, you're doing all the books, or you have a third party doing it, but you have to make sure that they're doing it correctly. Are we doing accrual? Are we doing cash basis? Do I actually understand the difference between those? Do I actually know where my money's even coming from? Whole separate conversation. And if you're not careful, you just get frustrated with everybody. But the real problem is that it's you, right? It's you're the leader. And the reason I know this, I went through this. I read a really good book around this. It's called The E-Myth Revisited, and it's about a baker. And the baker goes and says, I love baking pies. I'm so good at baking pies. I should open up a bakery. And they do, but they don't realize that there's HR, there's receivables, and they have to order the blueberries, and the crust doesn't turn out right in this oven, and all these problems. And they just said, man, all I wanted to do was bake pies, and they're the technician. that it actually describes them as the technician, and they have to learn a whole nother skill set to be successful and grow their bakery. And that's dentistry is the same way. Once you learn the clinical side and you become amazing at that, which I'm sure most of your guests take their business very, very seriously from a clinical standpoint, the same effort that you put into being a great clinician, entrepreneurship's just as hard. It's a different skill set though, but it's just as hard, just as much work. And that's why I love working with people like you, Eric, is that you guys come in and help them with those business frameworks and those mindsets to be able to help them through those problems that they're facing and be able to structure these things. And another thing that I try to explain to people is that in the history of mankind, no marketing has ever been successful on the back of a poor operation, ever. It doesn't matter how good your marketing is. If no one answers the phone, you lose. And so marketing is always, whether it's internal or external, it doesn't matter. You're at the mercy. The marketing company is at the mercy of the operation, and the operation is at the mercy of the clinician. So if one of your dentists, I'll give you an example. If a patient comes in and they have the best marketing that comes to them, and then they come in the best operations. I mean, they answer the phone, the appointment, they show up on time, everything's clean, everything's pretty, they feel welcome, they go back, and the dentist is having a bad day and is just like, what do you want? And starts talking down to him and starts talking crazy to the patient. It doesn't matter. The operations doesn't matter and the marketing doesn't matter because the clinician failed that patient. It's true all the way through. Each department has to win and has to be winning at a high level to be able to produce results.
Yeah, I mean, I see it in just like what we're talking about. That's a business philosophy to it. I think, dental, people in the dental community oftentimes just isolate themselves. This is just dental. This is different. This is different. Whereas when you break it down like that, it's not any different than any other company. When the sales process goes from when you close the deal, it goes on to the next phase. If they're not taken care of in each of these phases, one, it's going to get you a bad name in the marketplace, and the salesperson isn't going to trust in the process. One of the reasons why salespeople aren't as successful as they should be is because they don't trust in the process on the back end to get them going. And when you say that to a dental person, they're like, well, we're not in sales. That's not in a process. It's someone's booking a patient and then I get them in the door and then there's treatment planning. Well, there's a lot of nuances that go in there that ultimately affect the marketing results of this. Like It's all one thing. And if you don't have a process in place, and that's just business terminology.
Well, I think that also I wrote down, which I love, entrepreneurship is hard. And I think that, I joke, my undergrad's in business, my master's is in business. And I joke, I'm like, it's not like we just did Jenga all day or like played puzzles. Like there's actually, a lot of discipline that we learn. And so it's, this idea of I'm a baker and now I'm going to start a business. Well, that's like me saying I'm going to be a dentist on the side.
Yes.
It is a completely different profession. Exactly I can't just, or, I paid a dentist though. So it should all just turn around overnight. Well, understanding that it is hard. I love that saying, which is entrepreneurship is hard. It's not overnight and you need great guides and you didn't go to school, nor do you have the time to take the next 5 years to go to school and learn all this stuff. And so you bring on guides that can help you and then take that advice and implement that advice because it is hard. And I love that you said that because I think people should know and go eyes wide open. We're great. One of the things that Tower Leadership we do so well is just get them out of the dental chair. We've pulled more doctors out of the dental chair. It's absolutely amazing. But they're the ones who then understand entrepreneurship is hard and they seek and they lean into the advice. They lean into their advisors. They lean into the guides. They didn't go to a 1.5 hour seminar and then say, I should know everything about business and it should all just work now. It's like, well, if by the way, I laugh at that because Matthew has actually been there where someone's like, well, as an hour webinar, I should learn everything about my business and I'll be able to go to 420 million. It's like, well, hold on. It was like an hour. Like, what did you want me to cover in the hour of your entire business? That would be a great hour. Yeah, it would be the greatest hour ever. And so it is interesting because I think it's great for people listening to understand this. And I love that because like, I'm going to like I've been talking about tattoos lately, Matthew. Like maybe that's my tattoo is like, just know entrepreneurship is hard. It really is. But it's okay. If you lean into the right guides who can help you and guide you with the advice and you lean into that advice, the truth is though, you can make entrepreneurship a lot easier, a lot easier.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And I think
it's a team game. To Matthew's point, where he's saying everybody has to work together and make this work. It'd be like what happens a lot of times with marketing companies or consultants like yourself is that the doctor's like, well, just do it for me, figure it out. And that would be like the patient coming with a blown out mouth saying, fix everything for me. And then I don't want to do anything after that either. And the dentist is like, no, this is a team sport. You need to floss, you need to brush, and you need to have a water pick that you're using every single day. For how long? For the rest of your life. And if you want healthy teeth. Now, if you want to skip a couple days here and there, that's fine. But that's going to lower your quality of your teeth, and then you're going to come pay me for cavities and root canals and implants and things like that. That's totally fine. So there's options, right? We always have the choice, and I think that's important to understand that dentists go through the same thing with their patients that we do with our clients.
It's interesting. We did Jordan on our team did some math. I didn't even do the math. He walked into my office one day, he knocks on the door. He goes, I gotta tell you something. I said, what? He goes, your average client grew 686% in the last 36 months. Now, that's a phenomenal number. Now, but it made me think of that, what you just said, which is the difference is because they stuck with the program for 36 months. They didn't go, well, it's 8 months in, I should have been, 100 million. Yeah. That's the key though, right? Yeah. Is that it is an ever going learning process. So pulling it back to marketing and because the work you guys do is so amazing. So on that same front, because what I see oftentimes is the same thing. They lean into marketing for a little while, but oftentimes it's like I'm going to get my quick fix. Like I'm just going to drop it in, pull it back, drop it in, pull it back, drop it in, pull it back. So when it comes to the continuity of marketing and making sure you have a long-term campaign, we talked about branding and we talked about, lead generation and all these. What is when a company is looking at this, a practice is looking at this, what's the best advice around consistency in marketing?
Yeah, so you want to have consistent patient flow. So if you want to build a stable business, we've all been there before, where everything's going well, sales are going well, patients are coming in, we're hitting all our benchmarks, and then all of a sudden September hits and everything falls apart. And we go, and we don't know what to do, and we just kind of have to take that loss. And then we go, until next year, right? We'll be ready next year, and then it kind of happens again. The reason for that is if you are trying to run your organization through marketing, that's the wrong way to do it. Marketing's the least important thing in your business. The second most important thing in your business is the operations. The most important thing is the clinician. So the way I look at it is this. We have people come to us all the time and go, what should my avatar be? And I go, do you really want the marketing guy picking your avatar for your business? Do you want me picking what kind of patients you get? Well, yeah, you're the marketing guy. Okay, cool. I'm getting you pedo Medicaid. Those are the cheapest and the easiest patients to get. Well, no. We don't want those kind of patients. Okay, then I'm going to get you all on 4 cases. And because those are the most expensive leads, but they have the largest ROI. Well, we don't want to do that either. Well, I'm a marketing person. So that's how my brain works, right? Give me volume or give me quality, right? One of the two. And so it's really the clinician, the doctor should be saying, these are the kind of patients we want, because this is who we are as doctors. We want more of the all-on-4s. We want implants. We want Invisalign. We want complicated ortho patients. We want GP patients. We want families. We want pediatric. We are a pediatric Medicaid office, whatever it may be. So that should really be dictated from the inside out, not the outside in. That's like the worst way that you can do it. And then from there, it's what is your operational bandwidth? You can't just keep saying, I want more new patients. If you're putting people 4 weeks out, you don't need more new patients. You have something's broken inside of your operations, and you're punting patient. And this is something we track. So this is actually in our dashboard that we go average time to appointment for marketing patients. And when people start putting them too far out, we're just like, turn off your marketing. Stop wasting your money. Because your no-show rate, we can see it. It's going up. It's going up by 10% every month, every time you put them out a week. No, but we desperately need our new patients. What that tells me is that you don't understand the inside what's going on with your operation. And so getting that tight and understanding that is huge. Knowing just what your operational bandwidth is humongous. Getting your schedule squared away is huge. And one of the things too, a lot of people get intimidated by this, and they're like, then I should never market because I'm never going to. We can help you figure this stuff out. First of all, we won't work with somebody if they're not ready for marketing. So if someone's, says, oh, we don't have any availability for the next 6 months. Okay, get that squared away, talk to somebody like Eric, he'll help you out, and then come back and talk to us. But if someone says, you know what, I just don't know, I don't know these numbers, I don't know how to fix my schedule, I don't know how to pick an avatar, I don't know what I want to really attract, we can help them with that. So we have coaches, we have marketing coaches, we have coaches that help with all the convert on the phone, we have all those kind of coaches that come in and support. And that's not people always hear that and they go, is that your business? Can I come to you and get coaching? No, I'm not in the coaching or consulting business. I do it as a necessity. Think of them as like Navy SEALs, right? They know how to do one thing really well for one little tiny thing inside your business that will make a huge difference for your organization.
Yeah, I love that. I think that those are huge. Let me ask you this question, and because, by the way, I'm taking this podcast, Matthew, and then like every now and then, because we on the financial side, it's interesting because we tell them these things, but hearing it from you and hearing it from an expert in the field is so amazing because people ask us, we're the financial guys oftentimes, so we'll say this is how much you need to spend, and this is your acquisition cost, and this is ultimately if that's what you want to do, this is what we need to put into. All right, where should we put it? I'm not that guy. I'm not.
Put it in Bitcoin, SP,
and hope for the best.
Yeah, I can tell you to put it in your business, but whether it should be SEO or whether it should be Facebook ads or whether it should be whatever that is, that's not what I do. But I can tell you what your acquisition cost is, or based on your acquisition cost, I can tell you what the investment. But the operations, you're right, absolutely has to be there, and it has to be in place to be able to handle this. It's one of the things we see all the time. And then as soon as, by the way, if you tell me, it's almost like we have an accounting and CFO also at Tower, and the people that argue with me that their books are the best, those are the most jacked up books you've ever seen. It's the same way if you're sitting on this saying like my phones and my operations are the best, check. I'm going to challenge you on that one. What is
give
it?
me the percentage.
Trust but verify.
Well, the thing is everybody who's ever told me that, they never actually have a number. They just go, it's really, really, really good. And I go, what does that mean? And you know what that comes from? It comes from when you run a single location practice, you can run it off your gut because you're next to everything. So you can see that Susan at the front desk is actually pretty good, or she actually kind of stinks on the phone. You don't know her phone conversion exactly, but you know that she's good or she's not good. You can see the treatment coordinator, and you can see that lots of people are saying yes. You don't know her conversion rate, but you can see that a lot of people are saying yes. When you expand, you cannot run a business off your gut. It's all numbers. All of it's numbers. So I always challenge people, what is your conversion rate? What is your unanswered rate? If you don't know, you're probably at the average.
Yeah, I will tell you a funny phone conversation though. I thought was funny years ago. This is probably 5 years ago. This guy was just adamant how great his front team was. So I said, "Hey, let me give you a call. Let's just pick it up real quick." And he said, "You just caught him on a bad day." I was like, "Oh, okay."
I've heard that too.
I was like, "Yeah, right."
I've heard that too.
So look, I think with going back to the original part, which is data. A data-driven business, it's so important to have data around these numbers. I told you I utilize the thing. Have you ever watched Shark Tank? One of the first things they ask is, what's your acquisition cost? I have used that line more times than I could possibly, and I know even on this podcast. So I know that that's such an important thing, just telling people to understand that. So knowing these data, Matthew and I had a conversation this morning about our cost per lead, and we were having the exact same conversation because you know why? Because we're data-driven, and we got to know what that is. It can't just be a hunch. If my marketing company came back to me and said, well, we got a hunch that this is what's happening, I would be very upset, and they would no longer be my marketing company.
Well, here's what happens a lot of times. So this is just to get like really in the weeds in dental. So most marketing companies have like boatloads of data, like so much data it'll make your head spin, or almost all of them do. And then you have all this operational data over here, right, for the dental practice. But there's a chasm between them, right? So you can know how many people visited your website. You can even know the number of phone calls. People say, well, you spent $10,000 and you got like 10,000 phone calls. Well, how many? So here's the question. So your cost per lead's only $1. Well, no. How many of those 10,000 were actual patients? Well, we don't know, right? you don't. Yeah, exactly. You don't know. You have no idea. You don't know if there were patient referrals. Like here's another one. How many of your patients are patient referrals and how many are for marketing? Simple, right? Yeah. Most practices don't know. Some do, but most don't. And then if they do know, it's usually because the patient told them on a form, which is not accurate. If you're asking this question on the phone, hey, where'd you hear about us? Oh, I found you on your website. That's the last place they visited. Of course, they found you on the website. The correct question is, who can we thank for referring you? That's the correct answer. Because then they'll say, oh, my mom told me about you. Or, oh, Dr. Smith told me about you. Or they'll say, oh, no one referred me. I just looked you up online. Now you actually start to get some actual numbers. And then on the marketing side, if you tie it all together, and that's what we do, is we tie everything together, we can see what they searched. So they type in the word dentist as an example. More than likely, it's a marketing lead because they don't know who you are. But if they type in your name, ABC Dental, more than likely, they already know who you are. That's not going to be a marketing lead more than likely. Then on the phone, there's a verification, which there's AI that can help sort that. And then there's what they put in the PMS. And when you tie that all together, you get a triple verification that it is marketing or it isn't marketing.
I want to come back. I want to mention that, your company works with very large dental organizations. And so it's interesting that what you do is so sophisticated in a lot of ways, but the conversation we're having in some ways also goes back to fundamentals. So I want people to hear that and know that. If you started hearing some part of this, it was like, well, I already know that. I've heard that before. It's interesting. So Gary's company works with large dental organizations and DSOs. And so these are conversations that you need to understand that we're telling you very sophisticated organizations still have to look at these problems. And if you're struggling, you're probably needing to go back to some of these fundamental things, but we need to increase the sophistication. And I tell people it's levels of sophistication. So we're going to increase the level of sophistication, but understand we're not going to forget the fundamentals, because going back to, I told you we're going to bring up sports at some point. This isn't ultra sports, but it's a little sports. But if the golfer ultimately lets go of his or her alignment or grip or something, and then just focuses on, I'm just going to bomb this thing, and they don't focus on that, then everything kind of gets off. And it's interesting because I've seen practices go from 2 to 3 locations, and they're massively profitable. I'm talking, giant margins, and then overnight it's like, boom, what the hell happened? And the reason why is they let go, right? Because there has to be operations. So the fundamentals can never be let go. You never get to a point in business, just let you can have scale that deals with the fundamentals, but you can't ever just let go of fundamentals. So we're 42 minutes or something like that in. I could keep you here for the next 4 hours because this conversation, I feel like I'm like, here's the expert telling you all the things I've been telling you guys. You're a marketing expert, and I've been telling you guys this for years because I'm a business guy, and watching, putting us together is like lightning in a bottle sometimes. And so I love that. So if people want to learn more about your company, first of all, if you go on LinkedIn, you're going to see Gary, but that's branding. But if they want to learn more about you and learn more about what you guys do, what's the process for them just kind of reaching out and getting to know you a little bit, or know your company and find out a little more about their data and their practice?
Absolutely. And something too, I'll touch on that you said, we work with a lot of big organizations. So we do work with a lot of 50 practice type locations, but a lot of those started at 10 or 5, or they all started at 1 eventually, but when we met them. So the fundamentals really do help you grow, and it helps you grow with less stress. It's still stressful, still hard, but less stress, right? And so if people want to find us though, I would love to connect with you. So I'm on social media. You can connect with me anywhere there. You can watch our podcast, Dental Marketing Theory, but I bring in awesome people like Eric, and just, we talk dental. I love learning about entrepreneurship inside of dental. We have a lot of great guests. And then you can also go to our website. It's smcnational.com, and you can reach out if you have questions. We're happy to talk to you. We don't do contracts, and we're happy to do an evaluation. Usually we can save practices a minimum of about 20% more patients than they're currently getting with the same marketing budget. That's usually what we see. Not always. Sometimes people have things really well dialed in. If they are, we're going to tell them that up front. And sometimes people are not in a position, they're not ready for marketing yet. And if that's the case, we're going to tell them that up front. But for most people, we can usually increase their new patients by 20%. And also the other thing is if you have if let's say you have 10 practices and you go, well, 4 of them are doing really good, but 6 aren't or 5 aren't, from a new patient standpoint, we're happy to take your hardest practices and show you how we can work with your hardest practices. That's how we've gotten a lot of our big clients is, hey, give us your worst practice and let us show you what we can do. And then once we're able to solve that, then it's just the rest of them are easy.
I love it. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for being a guest today. This is
Absolutely. It's been a
this
pleasure.
has been awesome. This has been awesome. So thank you very much, Matthew. Thank you always for being the host extraordinaire, my friend.
I try. I think those are great points. We always like when we bring on a marketing person. I think Eric and I both get like extremely excited when we bring in someone of your expertise in there, because we know a lot about the industry and we've been trying to preach it to the marketplace forever. So when we can get more and more marketing information, it's always good. Yeah, go and Gary on social media. Go check out his website. Follow us. As always, like, subscribe, share with a friend this conversation. Be on the lookout for more great business content, marketing content.
I'll say one thing. Keep the feedback coming. You guys do an amazing job. I after these episodes, you all reach out and give me great feedback, and I'd love to hear it. So if you listen to this podcast and you're like fired up and you're like, this is awesome, yeah, let us know. Reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you, by the way.
Well, thanks for joining us, Gary. Thank you, Eric, as always, and then we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for having me. You guys have a great day.